The whispers in the trees. The stories about Hoia Baciu forest were whispered throughout Cluj-Napoca. Locals avoided the place, spinning tales of eerie lights, ghostly figures, and a persistent feeling of being watched. Some spoke of time anomalies, others of disappearances. Elena had heard the stories her whole life, but she was a skeptic. Science explained everything, or so she believed. A journalist by profession, Elena was tasked with investigating the most haunted forest in the world for an online documentary. Her plan was to spend the night in the forest, filming her experiences to debunk the myths once and for all. The arrival, the forest greeted her with its unsettling quiet. The air felt heavier the moment she stepped off the road, the towering, crooked trees blotting out the evening light. As she ventured deeper, the crunch of leaves beneath her boots seemed unnaturally loud, the only sound breaking the stillness. She carried a backpack filled with essentials, a camera, a flashlight, and a journal. At sunset, she found a small clearing to set up camp. It wasn't the clearing, the infamous circular spot where no plants grew, but it felt wrong nonetheless. The trees seemed to lean inward, as if they were watching her. By the time she set up her camera and lit a small fire, night had fallen, and the forest seemed to breathe. The whispers begin. Around midnight, Elena began her investigation. She walked with her flashlight and camera, narrating into the lens. People claim to see orbs of light in these woods. Others talk about feeling followed. Her voice faltered as a cold breeze whispered past her ear. It carried a faint, melodic sound, like a child's laugh. She froze. "Who's there?" she called, spinning around. The forest swallowed her voice. Her flashlight flickered, and in that brief moment of darkness, she thought she saw movement, a pale figure darting between the trees. The clearing. Determined to prove herself wrong, Elena pressed on. She checked her map and set a course for the circle. Her heart raced as she neared it, the air growing colder with every step. Finally, she reached the infamous spot. The clearing was stark and lifeless. The grass ended abruptly at its edges, giving way to bare, compact dirt. The moonlight illuminated the space, casting long shadows from the surrounding trees. Elena stepped into the circle. Her camera began to glitch, the screen distorting and filling with static. She tapped it, muttering under her breath, but the hum of the forest grew louder. Then came the whispers, soft, unintelligible words carried on the wind. They came from all directions, closing in. Elena swung her flashlight wildly. The beam caught glimpses of figures at the edge of the clearing. They stood motionless, just beyond the reach of the light. "Who are you?" she shouted, backing toward the center of the circle. Her voice broke as the figures stepped closer, their forms unnatural. Some seemed stretched, their limbs impossibly long, while others flickered like a broken image on a screen. Their faces were blank, devoid of eyes, mouths, or noses. Encounter. As she fumbled to grab her backpack, a sharp, high-pitched noise pierced the air. Elena screamed and dropped to her knees, clutching her ears. When she looked up, the figures had surrounded her, their bodies pulsating with a faint, unnatural glow. One leaned down, inches from her face. Its presence was suffocating, the air around it crackling like static electricity. It extended a hand, its fingers impossibly thin, and touched her forehead. In that instant, Elena's vision exploded with images, fractured memories of people she didn't know, faces twisted in terror, and the unmistakable sensation of falling through darkness. She saw the circle overrun with shadowy forms, the forest alive with whispers. She understood, in some primal part of her mind, that the forest was feeding. Then it stopped. The aftermath. Elena woke up at dawn, lying just outside the circle. Her camera was gone, along with her backpack and flashlight. Her journal was open beside her, a single sentence scrawled repeatedly across the pages in her own handwriting. It's not the forest, it's the circle. Elena stumbled back to the village, her body aching and her mind a foggy mess. She couldn't explain what had happened, but when she checked her phone, hours of footage had been uploaded to her cloud. The video showed her standing motionless in the circle, staring into the camera, her lips moving as if speaking, but there was no sound. At the end of the video, she turned to the camera, her eyes wide and empty, and whispered, "It's too late. Don't come back." No one saw Elena again after that night. Locals say she went back into the forest a week later and vanished without a trace. Her documentary was never finished, but the footage leaked online, spreading her story and cementing Hoia Baciu's reputation as one of the most terrifying places on Earth.